country. Brian Schlansky filling in for Dawn G here. And we know during this pandemic, times have been tough for so many people, trying to balance finances with a lot of people out of work and then having the stimulus checks thrown in as well. We want to give you some tips and advice on how to manage all of this. We have Rachel Richards joining us now, best-selling author of Money, Honey, and Passive Income. Thank you so much, first off, Rachel, for being with us. And I know a lot of people need to hear this today.
Thank you, Brian, for having me. I appreciate it.
You know, one of the things we wanted to talk about, we had heard that you moved during this whole entire process. What was that like, first of all? And for other folks who might be planning a big move during a pandemic, how do you even plan for that?
It was interesting, to say the least, and we've also been managing our rentals in Kentucky from afar for the first time ever, but we just tried to be as careful and clean as possible. We did have to hire movers here in Colorado to unload because there were some things that I just wasn't going to be able to lift. You know, they wore gloves, they wore protection, and we're past that 14-day mark since we moved now, so we know we're safe so far, knock on wood.
You know, you mentioned moving from Kentucky to Colorado, and you still have, obviously, your ties here, 35 rental units here in town. What's it been like trying to manage some of that passive income, not knowing what the future holds?
It's been challenging for sure. In a normal month, we make several thousands of dollars in rental income, in cash flow. I just did our financial analysis on our April month, and we basically broke even. Now, there's a lot of landlords that are a lot worse off than me. There's landlords that are doing better than I am. The way I see it, if my worst case scenario is that I break even for a few months, I'm really happy with that. We're kind of dealing with our tenants on a case-by-case basis, but we are in a lot of communication with them, more so than normal.
You know, a lot of people have woken up over this past several weeks and seen a stimulus check either in their account or in their mailbox. Obviously, some people know right away what they need to do with this. This money is needed right this minute. For people who maybe aren't in that situation but are wondering what to do next, maybe working towards the future, what are some of the tips you would recommend to us?
I would say with your stimulus check, if you're looking about how to spend that money, there's three things I would recommend doing. Number one, put it towards your emergency savings fund or put it towards essential bills. Number two, put it towards high interest debt. And then number three, invest in the stock market while the market is still down. Those three things will give you the most bang for your buck.
You know, talking about investing, that's a question a lot of people have had for us. Is now a good time? You're saying that it might be, especially while it's down.
Absolutely. So just to give some context, the Dow Jones was at its peak in February, it was about 29.5. It dropped in mid-March all the way down to about 18.5, and that was a 37% drop. Now it's rebounded a little bit. It's hovering around 24, 24.5 for the past couple weeks. But that means that it's still down 20%. And as we all know, the best time to invest in the market is when the market is down. Stocks are on sale, so I still think it's a great time to invest.
You know, Rachel, we're at a point now throughout this entire process. We're roughly 2 months into it. We've obviously learned some things. You've probably learned some financial lessons through this as well. Even being an expert, can you share what some of those would be? And if you were talking to people as we move forward, what now?
Absolutely. So I was reading some statistics recently, and before all this happened, I read that over 50% of Americans did not have $500 in emergency savings to cover an unexpected expense. Now, I just read a poll that was published within the last week, and it said that the number one stressor for Americans right now is not having enough money in their emergency savings account. So I think that's a big learning lesson. I think we can ask ourselves, you know, was I happy with the amount of money I had in savings coming into this? What can I do to better prepare going forward? Because recessions are cyclical. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So I think focusing right now on how to increase our savings is the best move. There are exactly two ways to increase your savings. Number one, decrease your expenses. Number two, increase your income. And if you can focus on doing both, that is where you'll make the most impact with your budget.
One of the ways you've been able to increase your income is by having different revenue streams. That's something that experts talk about a lot. What tips do you have for people who maybe they've always worked one job and they've got the situation where they can do it, they just don't know where to turn, where to look next? What would you talk to people just starting out and trying to find new streams of revenue?
Absolutely, Brian. I'm glad you brought that up because I think it's sort of a myth that having a full-time salaried position is safe. and that means you have a stable job and you have income security. Because if you're 100% dependent on a single source of income, that's not safe, because what if your hours get reduced? What if you get laid off? What if you lose your job? So that's where I like to talk about income diversification, having multiple sources of income. That's really the best protection against potential job loss. So if you're out there looking for ways to make extra income, you can look at ways to make active income. So where you're trading your time for your money, you can get a part-time job, you can babysit, mow lawns, all sorts of things you can do. Or maybe you're looking for passive income, which is a lot more hands-off, and those are a little more unique. That's things like rental income, portfolio income, royalty income, and so forth.
Speaking of rentals, you have a unique perspective to all of this, being a business owner, but also someone who owns rentals. And right here in Wave Country, so many as well. If I'm a tenant right now and I'm struggling during this pandemic, what are some things that I would need to know right now going through this?
Here's what I would say to tenants. Your landlords want to work with you. They want to make it through this together. So I would say be proactive. Don't disappear. Don't ghost. Be proactive in your communication. If you've been impacted, call them right away and say, listen, I might need some help. Can we work together? Your landlord might be able to waive late fees. They might be able to put you on a payment plan. So there are a lot of options. Don't forget to apply for unemployment. And more so than that, there are a lot of state and local aid and assistance that you can apply for as well. So there is the neighborhood place, and the one, I think it's called the One Louisville is the one I looked up, and the Community Foundation of Louisville. And I would say to landlords, make this information easy for your tenants. We've been sending them out all these resources. We've been encouraging them to apply, and we've already received several rent checks for some of these assistance and these different corporations that are giving out assistance. And that's really a win-win for both the landlord and the tenant.
Rachel, your book ended by your book here as we talk to you right now. And of course, a lot of people have already seen it, being a bestseller in 10 different categories on Amazon. For those of us out there who haven't read it, aren't familiar with it, what could we learn if we pick it up and start reading today?
So passive income is all about how to create money with little to no ongoing effort. And it's no get-rich-quick scheme. I know it sounds too good to be true, but it does take time or money to create. I had this epiphany several years ago that once your passive income exceeds your living expenses, you're retired, you're financially independent. And the way I view passive income, traditionally the way we save for retirement is we save this large chunk of money all the way up throughout our lives until we're 65, and then we live off of that. That can be really hard for some people. I actually read recently that millennials will need over $2 million accumulated by age 65 in order to retire. Now, I don't know about you, but to me that sounds daunting. I don't know many multimillionaires. So passive income to me is a much more attainable way to retire. I truly believe that anyone at any age on any income can absolutely achieve financial independence.
You mentioned that $2 million number being so daunting. If I'm somebody out there who has my one job, I go to work every day, I say, hey, I thought this was the way to make it, and you see that number, what do you say to those people who are working so hard every day but know how difficult it could be to actually attain that?
It's never too late to build passive income. So if you talked to me just 3 years ago, I had $0 in passive income. Fast forward 2.5, 3 years later, my husband and I are now financially independent, and we have over $10,000 per month in passive income. So even if you're somebody that's working full time and you've been saving up in your 401k and trying to accumulate this nest egg, you can still create passive income and have that supplemental income for you during retirement as well.
Well, Rachel, we thank you so much for being with us here today and traveling kind of back to Louisville anyways via your via your headset here and getting us up to date on all the things we need to know about. Again, Rachel Richards, a best-selling author, Money, Honey, and Passive Income. Some great tips there on what to do as we navigate this pandemic. I do want to let you know what's coming up next here on Wave Country. We have Chef